A smash and grab robbery caught on camera. Thieves swarm a Mississauga business.
A little shooken up because you just don't expect that to happen to you.
Tonight, out in the open and in plain sight, and not the only one, are the alarming crimes connected. Good evening. Peel police are investigating amid concerns there could be a rise in this kind of retail theft.
The high-profile nature raising questions about whether social media is playing a role. CTV's Rahim Ladani joins us live with the details. Rahim.
Michelle and Nathan, good evening. Over my left shoulder, you can see the window of a store boarded up here in Port Credit after a brazen robbery last week. And the security video you're about to see, it's quite shocking. Now, there have been other robberies nearby, and it has retailers wondering if it's part of a bigger trend.
I went to the door and I saw one guy here,
It was last Friday afternoon around 5 o'clock when James Latini thought there was a customer at a store Pure 10. Security video shows one person approaching and Latini opening the door.
I noticed 3 other guys start running from over there, and that's when I noticed. So I had to try to shut the door, but they just pushed me out of the way.
Latini ran out and locked the door as the 4 thieves began ransacking high-end clothing.
In the moment, a little shooken up because you just don't expect that to happen to you.
After grabbing as much as they could in just 40 seconds, one of the suspects took out an axe and began smashing the window. They all jumped out and ran off. It's the second time this month Latini's store has been a target.
There was an attempt through a back door about a week prior, but thankfully they didn't get in.
Other businesses in the area say Port Credit is seeing a negative transformation.
There's a restaurant over there that got broken into. There's other places that have been going through the same sort of stuff, so it's not a sleepy town as much as anyone thinks any longer.
But the brazen incident doesn't stop there. 2 hours after the robbery at Pure 10, social media video captured this cell phone store inside Square One Mall being robbed just 6 kilometers away. Peel Police's Robbery Bureau has taken over both investigations and is looking into a possible connection.
There's software that is in place now and being developed to where the dots are being connected through artificial intelligence.
Security experts believe social media trends are contributing to the rise in retail theft and suggest businesses continue to take preventative measures.
There may have been, 10 other situations that didn't take place because people scouted the premises and discovered that he does use CCTV and decided not to steal.
Back at Pure 10, the business has reopened, and Latini says he won't be scared off. And now no arrests have been made in either of the robberies. As for the stolen merchandise here at Pure 10, the owner tells me it's valued at around $15,000. Reporting live, I'm Rahim Ladani. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
All right, thanks, Rahim. Coming up, a triple shooting in Caledon. A man is dead, 2 women badly injured. We'll take you to the neighborhood where the shots rang out, frightening residents.
Now to a story impacting the finances of people right across the country. This afternoon, the federal government delivered its fall economic update.
It comes amid signs inflation is easing, but it's still too high. And the federal government hopes its new $15.7 billion plan will bring relief to struggling Canadians. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver has the details.
A cornerstone of Canada's fiscal blueprint is a $6.2 billion housing plan aimed at making housing more affordable and more available to Canadians. To kickstart the creation of new homes, companies building new rental properties will be eligible for an additional $15 billion in low-cost loans, a measure that is expected to create 30,000 new units.
It's nice to have all the trees over there.
Ottawa is also hoping to get new units on the rental market by making it less lucrative to own short-term rentals. Starting January 1st, income tax deductions, including interest payments, will be denied for owners in provinces and municipalities that have prohibited short-term rentals. $50 million over 3 years will also be made available to regions conducting enforcement. To ensure affordable homes hit the market, $1 billion over 3 years will be given to nonprofit, co-op, and public housing providers with the aim of building 7,000 new homes by 2028. $309 million will go to the Cooperative Housing Development Program, and the GST will be removed on new co-op rental housing. For property owners struggling under the weight of rising mortgage costs, a new Canadian mortgage charter is being created. Under that charter, federally regulated institutions, including banks, will be required to contact homeowners 4 to 6 months before renewal, allow the temporary extension of amortization periods to bring down payments, waive fees and payments on relief measures, and to sell their principal residence without prepayment fees.
There's a lot of positives to be said around the government's housing policy. The problem is the magnitude of the issue that they're trying to deal with and their scope to actually make a difference.
The fiscal update includes about $15.7 billion in new spending over the next 6 years, including promises to exempt professional psychotherapy and counseling services from GST/HST, the introduction of a new 15-week shareable EI benefit for adoptive and surrogate parents, and up to 4 additional weeks of regular EI benefits for seasonal workers. Their savings coming from an additional $2.4 billion in cuts from the federal public service.
I think the government wants to have a reputation of exercising fiscal restraint, and they want the public to see that. But I think they're not prepared to take the kinds of measures that are going to be necessary.
Analysts say that overall the economic picture is not as rosy as the government is trying to project. Debt servicing charges are on track to nearly double to $60 billion by 2028-2029. Unemployment set to rise 1% to 6.4%, even in a best-case scenario next year. And the deficit, while relatively unchanged from their spring forecast at $40 billion this year, it will drop to $23.8 billion in 2027-2028, almost $10 billion higher than projected in the budget.
Many of the government's new promises won't take effect for a couple more years, just in time for the next scheduled federal election. Annie Bergeron-Oliver, CTV News, Ottawa.
So what does that economic update mean for Toronto and the finances of the city here?
Funding for housing has been an ongoing issue. CTV's Natalie Johnson spoke to the mayor and budget chief and has reaction from City Hall. Natalie.
Well, Nathan, there is no specific dollar figure earmarked for Toronto at this point, though the city is certainly hoping to get a big piece of the pie when it comes to that $1 billion in affordable housing money. Mayor Chow, though, says the plan isn't ambitious enough because the money doesn't flow fast enough. In this downtown shoe shine shop, the owner says it is clear that Torontonians are trying to pull back on their spending.
Always they bargain. For example, $10 bill, they say, $10.
And just down the hall at this hair salon, these chairs are empty, even though the holidays are fast approaching. Typically the busiest time of year here.
We're suffering as hairdressers. People don't have extra money to get haircuts. They're prolonging their times to get haircuts.
It's about helping middle-class families with the cost of living.
On Parliament Hill today, an acknowledgement from Ottawa that affordability is a key concern. The government pledging $1 billion in direct spending on affordable housing and an extra $15 billion in low-cost loans to build rentals.
It's promising, but the funds needs to come a lot faster.
A deflated-sounding Olivia Chow, feeling it was too little, too late.
Unfortunately, it's not ambitious enough. The $1 billion that are being offered across the country doesn't start till 2025.
As the city looks to build 65,000 rent-controlled homes by 2030.
Cities like Toronto need significant support from our federal government to make sure that Canadians have an affordable and great quality of life.
It comes at a time when Council is calling for federal funds for refugee shelter supports, new Line 2 subway cars, residual COVID costs, and more. Budget Chief Shelley Carroll acknowledging that City Hall's wish list to Ottawa has never been longer.
That's not unusual when you hit economic hard times, nationally, globally. And, you know, in times like this, we know that the federal government has to be very careful about their spending. And so, while we have a lot of asks, they are spend for impact asks.
Turning to Ottawa every week is not going to be a sustainable strategy. We need to focus on our priorities here, and we need to provide specific direction to the federal government, to the provincial government on how those dollars are actually going to be used.
But the mayor is still hopeful that separate housing accelerator funds could flow by the end of the year.
I was hoping that there would be more funds, more investment. The plan would be more ambitious, but at least there's a blueprint.
In a city where the costs keep climbing, whether it be housing or haircuts. Mayor Chow did say that she was pleased that an additional $300 million would be made available for the development of co-op housing, though she's disappointed there was no mention of money for refugees or infrastructure. Reporting live at City Hall, I'm Natalie Johnson. Nathan, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Natalie. Also tonight, another possible strike averted. Ontario and the Public Elementary Teachers Union reach a tentative deal. Could this signal more education deals to come with the other unions?
But first, wet weather moved in today, and it's going to stick around for a little while longer. It is wet, it is windy, and it's been rather dark out there. It's definitely dark now. This live look offering, a more typical November scene. Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at the current conditions. Still more rain to come?
Well, a little more rain to come, Michelle, especially as we move into the overnight hours. We've dried out in downtown Toronto, relatively speaking, and at least for a little while here, along with the west end of the GTA. But rain continues in through Durham region. We've got snow and some light freezing rain in through eastern sections of Ontario, as well as central parts of the province. But we're not quite in the clear just yet. There's a special weather statement and freezing rain warning that remain in place. The freezing rain warning that was in place northwest of the city has now come to an end. We've got gusty winds out of the east. That's why it's been so windy. And temperature-wise, we've climbed a few degrees in the last couple of hours here. We're now at 4 in the city of Toronto, and we're looking at an overnight low, not so low, of 5. We're going to take you through the full weather forecast coming up. For now, Nathan, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. We turn to the investigation into a triple shooting in Caledon.
It's left 1 man dead and 2 women seriously injured. The gunfire erupted late last night. Our Beth McDonnell joins us from the scene, which is on Mayfield near Airport Road. What's the latest, Beth?
Michelle, tonight Ontario Provincial Police say this is a homicide investigation and they are looking for multiple suspects in connection with the triple shooting. The search for answers in the triple shooting is just beginning. Why did a man die and 2 women get critically injured?
I'm scared. Actually, yeah.
Wilfredo Rodriguez lives in the house next door. From inside, he says he heard the sound of gunshots.
It was maybe 2 or 3. That's it.
Ontario Provincial Police say they were called to the home on Mayfield Road near Airport Road before midnight in Caledon. Peel paramedics say the man was found dead while the women were rushed to hospital.
We checked so many police cars, guys are standing there. They told us to go inside, don't stay outside.
All the people we spoke with in the house next door say they've lived there for less than a year and don't know their neighbors.
Not sure, yeah. Because there is truck people, then the truck is coming in and out, so we're not sure if it's family living in or people from truck, they are living there.
In January, according to the town of Caledon, the property is one of 2 in the area where illegal trucking companies were given a court order to cease operations. The town says the businesses were using the properties against its zoning and bylaws. Police have not made any connection with the shooting and activities on the property. Meanwhile, the search for the suspects is on. Viewer video shows a truck on fire in the area of Old Baseline Road and Credit View Road. This is about 20 minutes drive from where the shooting took place, and police say they are investigating if there's a link. The spot now shows the ground charred. The vehicle is gone. Officers believe there are multiple suspects involved in the case, with 1 person last seen getting in a black pickup truck. Police say the black pickup truck was last seen going west on Mayfield Road. Investigators are asking people for dash cam video between 11 p.m. and 12:30 a.m. from both the area around the home on Mayfield as well as where that vehicle was on fire. Tonight, police say the victims remain in hospital and there is no imminent threat to public safety. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell.
All right, thank you, Beth. Disgraced former fashion mogul Peter Nygard will be back in court December 14th. Nygard made a virtual court appearance today, his first after being found guilty of 4 counts of sexual assault. A date for a sentencing hearing has yet to be set. The 82-year-old also faces charges in Quebec, Manitoba, and New York State.
There's likely some relief tonight for countless families with young school children in Ontario.
The union representing elementary teachers has reached a deal with the province, averting a potential strike. CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris joins us with the details, including the other education unions that are still negotiating their contracts. Siobhan.
Well, this new contract goes into 2026. We won't know all the specifics until members approve it. So we have 2 of 4 teachers' unions now with contracts. The education minister is hoping this latest one will help speed those other ones along. Picking up the kids from school in the rain may not be exactly a good time, but there is a bright spot for parents on a gloomy day.
Kids sitting at home serves nobody good, so I'm glad that there won't be a strike.
The government and the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario have a tentative contract.
Students win in this, parents win, communities.
We have reached a deal, a good deal, for all the parties that provides stability to families.
If ETFO members sign off, it would mean labor peace, continuous learning at public elementary schools into 2026.
My son is a little bit behind because of COVID and online learning, so I think it's great for them to have their routine.
There were a lot of disruption last few years. And this year, we want the kids to have the regular routines.
It's better to do work so you can get smarter and learn.
ETFO's president maintains collective bargaining was the right approach for her members.
We talked about issues about violence, issues around special education, professional judgment.
Not everything has been resolved.
We made progress at the table over the past weeks, but anything outstanding will now go to binding interest arbitration.
With contracts yet to be nailed down with 2 teachers' unions.
I'm using this opportunity to remind, encourage, insist to our Catholic and French unions to get this done.
A push the head of the Catholic Teachers Union finds interesting.
Because he's kept his team on the bench for over a year, and it took us having to be forced to take a strike vote for him to finally send his team to play.
Jensen Indewal has felt momentum at the table the last few days as negotiators tackle some key issues.
Growing violence, the needs of mental health and the stress in the schools, there's a crisis of that, the cuts to supports and resources for students.
He's hopeful a deal is attainable. In terms of the timeline for that ETFO deal, members will see the details this week, and then there will be ratification votes, but they'll stretch over many weeks, so we may not have this totally resolved until right before the Christmas break. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. An injunction has been filed to stop the province from developing the West Island of Ontario Place. The lawsuit was filed by advocacy group Ontario Place for All late last week. It calls for a pause on development until an environmental assessment is conducted. The group has expressed concerns over the amount of trees that will be cut down to complete the renovation.
The respondents, including the Ministry of Infrastructure, Infrastructure Ontario, the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport, intend to redevelop the West Island of Ontario Place, which involves, in part, building a massive glass mega spa. In doing so, they intend to destroy the West Island of Ontario Place by cutting down 840 trees, leveling the historic heritage landscape, and filling in portions of the lakefront.
Court documents claim the government has argued an environmental assessment of the land is not necessary, as the redevelopment is a private undertaking by Austria-based resort company Therma.
Ontario drivers will soon have an option to reduce their insurance payments. Starting in January, drivers will be able to opt out of direct compensation property damage coverage. The coverage protects vehicle owners from costs related to damage from a collision if they're not at fault. It also covers the loss of a vehicle or its contents. The province says the change is meant to increase consumer choice and could be useful for older vehicles, which may be worth less than the cost of insurance. And we have more details online. Multi-platform writer Catherine de Klerk has information on what Ontario drivers need to know about the new insurance rules coming in 2024. It's on our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca.
No injuries were reported from a house fire in Oakville. The flames broke out in the garage on Tinsmith Lane near Upper Middle Road and 3rd Lane at around 8 this morning. Everyone inside this home was able to get out safely. The cause of the fire is under investigation.
CTV John Musselman is live at the scene of a high-rise fire in downtown Toronto where at least one person was seriously injured. John.
Well, Nathan, the situation is now under control, but when this fire broke out, witnesses were telling us the hallway was filled with smoke and it was difficult to see. The gray smoke was billowing from the 18th floor unit. Pieces of burnt debris were also seen falling to the ground below. The fire broke out around 2:45 this afternoon at 650 Parliament Street. That's just north of Wellesley.
Well, I saw that when I left the apartment, I saw smoke all across my floor. The apartment was right beside my apartment, 1804. So the whole floor was covered in smoke. So I didn't have a chance to grab my belongings or anything with me.
We got down and see the
The fire erupted in the 18th floor, and the smoke is, we can't see anything around the buildings.
One man and 2 dogs were pulled from the unit. The man is listed in serious condition, suffering from smoke inhalation. The dogs were taken to a local veterinarian for assessment and care.
They encountered heavy smoke. The first-in crews requested a second alarm, which is a standard for high-rises in Toronto. The crews assembled quickly, had the hose set up, and fire knocked down quickly, and patients removed.
This is the same building that was hit by a devastating fire back in August of 2018. The fire destroyed the building's electrical system. 1,500 tenants were forced out for more than a year and a half until the building could be repaired and reoccupied. Back at today's fire, no other injuries were reported. And we can tell you most of the tenants are now back in the building. The investigation continues here as to what caused this fire. Reporting live, I'm John Musselman. I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, John. In the Middle East, there may be a major development unfolding in the war between Israel and Hamas.
Potential deals in the works to release some of the hostages being held by Hamas. CTV's Heather Wright reports.
But first, after weeks of negotiations, optimism from the U.S. president this morning.
Yeah, we're now very close. Very close. We could bring some of these hostages home very soon.
The hostage negotiations have been brokered primarily by Qatar. They reportedly include Hamas releasing roughly 50 women and children in exchange for approximately 150 Palestinian women and teenagers jailed in Israel, according to those familiar with the proposed agreement. No military-age men are part of the hostage exchange, though their families hold out hope they will soon be released.
It's difficult to know that he's not the first in line, but we do understand it. But we are not going to give up.
As part of the deal, fighting is expected to stop for 4 or 5 days, time humanitarian organizations have been pleading for to allow them to distribute more aid to more people. The U.S. says 50 trucks and more than 75,000 liters of fuel have entered the enclave in the last 24 hours. While 3 hospitals in the north, including Al-Shifa, have requested the UN's help in evacuating patients. This baby is among the premature infants evacuated from Al-Shifa on Sunday. He's now in a hospital in Rafah, but no one knows who he is. We don't know where his family is or whom we should contact to send him to, this doctor says. One family, though, was able to reunite with their daughter, who was also in Al-Shifa. 3 days ago, we heard news they are moving the babies, this mother says, after tracking her down at this hospital. The World Health Organization said today critical care is no longer possible in any of Gaza's 36 hospitals, as the need for urgent medical treatment continues to rise. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
And here at home, a man stranded in Gaza since the war began was reunited with his family at Pearson Airport today.
Oh, we're very excited. We're all here. The family's here. We're all here to meet him and to welcome him back. We can't believe that he made it. He made it.
Now I'm feeling good. I'm feeling better. I'm with my family now. I'm back to our country,
So far, more than 450 Canadians in the Palestinian territory have entered Egypt through the Rafah border crossing. There were no Canadians on today's list of people approved to leave Gaza.
We turn now to the war in Ukraine. The United Nations is now saying the civilian death toll is over 10,000. 2 people were killed in Russian strikes on residential areas of Kherson yesterday. 1 person was injured when the city was hit again today. Kherson has been the subject of almost daily attacks since it was liberated a year ago. Elsewhere, port infrastructure in the southern city of Odessa was struck. Moscow stepped up such attacks after withdrawing from a deal that guaranteed safe shipments of Ukrainian grain.
In India, the first images have emerged of the 41 men trapped in a highway tunnel. Can you imagine? The workers have been stuck in the 4.5-kilometer tunnel since it caved in 9 days ago. But they are safe with access to light, oxygen, food, and medicine. Efforts to bring them out have been hampered by snags in drilling through the debris in the mountainous terrain. It's not clear what caused the tunnel to collapse.
The King welcomed a world leader to the UK today. South Korea's president received a guard of honor as he kicked off a 3-day visit. Yoon Suk-yeol and the monarch later traveled by carriage along the mall en route to Buckingham Palace. It's the first state visit hosted by the UK since the coronation. It's intended to deepen diplomatic and business ties as talks are launched on a new free trade agreement. Yoon will hold talks with the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak tomorrow. Meanwhile, the King's son was in Vancouver last night.
We are thrilled to welcome Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, founder and patron of the Invictus Games Foundation.
The Duke of Sussex took part in a ceremonial puck drop before the game between the Canucks and the San Jose Sharks. The Prince was there as part of the lead-up to the 2025 Invictus Games. Vancouver and Whistler will be hosting the international multi-sport event. Harry founded the games in which wounded, injured, and sick servicemen and women compete. Coming up, leaf removal in their neighborhood no longer. Residents in pockets of the city who have long enjoyed a special service are not happy about council's decision to axe it to save millions.
So temperatures are rising this evening and will continue to do so through the overnight. We're looking at a not so low low of 5 degrees. The average overnight low this time of year is -1. Worth pointing out that we could still have a few showers early tomorrow morning. There might be some patchy fog at times too. Then we're going to dry out as the day goes on. We might even see some sun before our day is finished. We'll talk about that and the forecast heading into the weekend coming up. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
For many homeowners, it is a chore every autumn, bagging up what can feel like a mountain of leaves.
But for decades, that wasn't the case in several Toronto wards. The city actually removed the leaves for residents in several wards, but that's no longer the case. The service was cut from the budget earlier this year. As CTV's Alison Hurst reports, residents aren't happy.
Even on a rainy day, Bob Konchenko is outside blowing leaves into place before bagging them for collection.
This area here has got more mature trees than I think than anywhere else in Toronto. What drops here in a day takes the rest of the city about 2 weeks.
For the first time since Toronto's amalgamation, the municipality is no longer providing mechanical vacuum leaf removal from 42,000 homes in Etobicoke, Scarborough, and York, a luxury the majority of the city has gone without.
We've been paying for this for years, and all of a sudden, we're not getting it. You know, it's becoming ridiculous.
Since the 1960s, residents in these areas would rake leaves into piles at the end of their property, and they'd be vacuumed up by a passing truck.
That tree is on city property. It's not my leaves, that's city leaves.
Craig Manderson feels that after 40 years of living here and enjoying that service, he shouldn't have to suddenly start bagging leaves.
The councillors downtown are not worried about Etobicoke, Scarborough, and North York. They're not worried about that. They're worried about downtown and bicycle lanes and things like that.
The program was axed during the city's latest budget. A spokesperson says the change will result in an estimated savings of $2.3 million per year, and that the change only impacts the collection of leaves that fall on private property. The city will continue to collect fallen leaves from the public right-of-way, including roads, ditches, and culverts.
It's an interesting discussion about what role the city has in dealing with many things, including subsidizing housing versus operational matters like picking up leaves and yard waste.
City Councillor Stephen Holliday says he's heard from countless constituents, many of whom are seniors.
People have taken the time individually to contact me, the councillor's office, to say they're upset with City Council's decision.
He says he tried to get it back into the city's budget and hopes residents in other wards will apply pressure to their councillors to bring it back. Alison Hurst, CTV News.
All right, to the forecast, we've had wind, rain, a warning, not the best mix.
No, if you had to pick up leaves today, it would not have been a fun one. Very gloomy today, but as my 3-year-old said this morning, when it rains, there's puddles, so he's loving it.
Fun.
Okay, well, there's a silver lining that I think we all needed on a day like today and a night like tonight. The rain is tapering off. It's still very drizzly out there. It's very gloomy. It's one of those nights where you maybe don't exactly want to go puddle jumping. You just want to stay cozy inside at home. We haven't had a whole lot of November days like this one. This type of weather is pretty typical in this month. Heading into tomorrow, it will be drier, but we've got another cool down in store heading into the weekend. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. Earlier today, we had a freezing rain warning in place for the city of Hamilton, over toward Caledon and Owen Sound. That has since come to an end. There is still a freezing rain warning in place for eastern sections of Ontario, including the city of Ottawa. And yes, some parts of Ontario tonight still are going to pick up a slushy 5 centimeters of snow. Some of the hardest hit areas, maybe about 10 centimeters. Here's what it looks like currently on our satellite and radar. So again, drier than it was. That rain was coming down pretty steady earlier this afternoon and coming down sideways at times thanks to the very strong winds out of the east. This low pressure system is going to depart as we make our way through the night tonight. We're likely to get another round of wet weather before the night is finished and certainly into the overnight. Chance that we could wake up to a couple of spotty showers tomorrow morning. There's the overnight, just to give you an idea of what's in store there. Then we're going to dry things out. We should get some clearing into tomorrow afternoon. Wouldn't that be nice to see some sun before it sets? And then Thursday is another mostly cloudy day. Look what starts to happen overnight and into Friday. We see signs of the lake effect machine starting to kick in and a few bands forming off Lake Huron and Georgian Bay. That's not a concern for us here in Toronto yet. Could be by the end of the weekend. 4 degrees right now in Toronto. Look at Windsor, though. It is now 10 degrees, so milder air is pushing in. Still -1 in Ottawa and -3 degrees this hour in Sudbury. A look at tomorrow. Welland could be 10 for the high. Likely to be around 7 degrees in cities like Guelph, as well as Aurora, maybe 9 in Burlington, and 6 in the Uxbridge area. Let's take you through the 7-day forecast. So it is seasonably warm into Thursday as well. We're going to start to cool down on Friday as well as over the weekend. Highs of only 1 and 2 degrees. Should be a mostly dry weekend, hopefully with some sun on Friday and Saturday. Chance of a few flurries or mixing Sunday night and into the day on Monday. That's your look at the weather for now. Nathan, back to you.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. Also tonight, unstoppable after receiving a new heart. A transplant patient aims to reach new heights on a quest to promote the life-saving importance of organ donation. Getting a heart transplant 25 years ago hasn't stopped Dale Shipham from exploring the world in the most extreme way.
Now he and his one-time doctor are heading out on a new journey to help raise money to advance technology in cardiac medicine. CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan has more.
25 years ago, Thunder Bay firefighter Dale Shipham came to Toronto General suffering from dilated cardiomyopathy. His heart couldn't pump adequately and he needed a heart transplant.
He arrested in the elevator, and we were doing chest compressions in the elevator and on our way into the coronary care unit, something like you might have seen in a TV show, but truly happened.
Every day when you go to sleep, you don't know if you'll wake up. It was very serious.
But thanks to an organ donor, Dale got a new heart. The former marathon runner returned to his job fighting fires and doing intense sports. And in 2006, he and Dr. Heather Ross went on their first excursion for Test Your Limits, an organization to raise awareness and funds for pioneering technology in cardiology.
We went to climb Mount Vincent Massif in Antarctica. It's the highest mountain in Antarctica.
They've been on 10 hair-raising journeys together since then, and on Thursday they're going on their next trip.
We are hoping to summit Cayambe and then Chimborazo. Cotopaxi, which would have been the third of the 3 volcanoes, which are the traditional climbs in Ecuador, of course, is an active volcano, so we thought we'd give that a pass.
Over the years, Test Your Limits has raised more than $4 million for things such as mechanical hearts and wearable cardiac monitors. And if this latest trip is successful, Dale will become the first heart transplant patient to reach an altitude of 6,283 meters.
I think Dale is just an incredible human, right? But it also speaks to the wonders of science, technology and science and what we can do.
And Dale's message? The life-saving importance of organ donation. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Health Canada is bringing in new regulations for natural health products. The rules apply to vitamins and supplements and include cost recovery and new labeling guidelines. But there are concerns some companies may pass on those fees. They may pass on those fees to customers. That may end up costing customers more, as the federal agency says some manufacturers are leaving ingredients off their labels or making false advertising claims. Companies have 5 years to update their labels.
The awarding of an Emmy for a documentary on Buffy St. Marie is being criticized by a group of Indigenous women. Buffy St. Marie, Carry It On, was made before questions arose about the folk singer's Indigenous ancestry. Still, the Indigenous Women's Collective says documentaries are supposed to be factual, and the award feels like a slap in the face. St. Marie has denied the accusation made in a CBC investigation last month. One of the companies that produced the film says it stands behind the musician.
The Stones are set to roll again, the band announcing a 16-date tour of North America today.
So I told you twice.
The Rolling Stones tour begins April 28th in Houston, concluding in Santa Clara, California on July 17th. The band is going on the road in support of Hackney Diamonds, its first album of original material in 18 years. There is only one Canadian show. It's in Vancouver, July 5th.
Some pretty big theater news tonight. Mirvish Productions is heading back to the Savannah. The Lion King is returning to the Toronto stage.
It is rare for a city to mount a show in this way twice, and it's not a touring show. This will be predominantly Canadian cast. Our Andrea Case joins us now with the details. Andrea, at the Princess of Wales Theatre today. How was the show?
It was fantastic. I'm not even going to try and sing a song from The Lion King because it'll be embarrassing, especially when you see the professionals on stage, like my shirt. Even without the staging and costumes, the songs performed today for subscribers was just as emotional as when I sat in the audience 23 years ago. It is the most successful theatrical show ever. The Lion King is coming back to Toronto after opening at the Princess of Wales Theatre 23 years ago. Today, a taste of what's to come.
First of all, Lion King itself, there's nothing like it. And when I say that as a South African, and also who's somebody who's been part of the company for so many years in different companies, every time that happens, as much as you're saying it, it's like the audience is giving it back to you. I got goosebumps. I started shaking a little bit. If you can see the video, probably I was so moved myself. David Mirvish says Lion King was great for a generation of actors then and a generation of actors to come, and the city of Toronto.
I am beyond excited. Lion King is back. Wow.
Lion King from 2000 to 2004 played 1,567 performances. Wow. It employed hundreds of people. It was seen here in Toronto by 3 million patrons, and it had an economic impact on our community of $1.4 billion.
Ann Quart began working for Mirvish Productions as a teenager. Now she runs Disney's theatrical group.
Many cities are used to a touring production, which is a show that comes in for a few weeks and then leaves. The magic that happens in a sit-down production is that the cast is of that place. The cast will be Canadian, the musicians will be Canadian, the crew will be Canadian. I think that it means an investment in the arts. I think it means that that culturally the city is healthy and vibrant and alive. And I think that all means great things for Toronto.
Okay, if you're wondering why it shut down in 2004, it was SARS. So if you think you have what it takes to be in The Lion King, warm up your vocal cords. Auditions will begin in the spring. And just like they did 23 years ago, the production will scour the country for talent. Mirvish is coming for you. Reporting for CTV News, I'm Andrea Case. Good night.
Stars Tonight is brought to you by Lastman's Bad Boy. Who's better? Nobody.
After the break, first they tackled the upper bowl. Now the lower bowl at Rogers Centre is getting a revamp. Phase 2 of the renovations now underway. A peek at the progress in moments.
A few showers possible early tomorrow morning, but drying out, and maybe even some sun in the afternoon. This is your school day forecast for Wednesday. The temperature holding steady through much of the day. We'll take another look at your long-range forecast coming up.
I noticed 3 other guys start running from over there,
And that's when I noticed. So I had to try to shut the door, but they just pushed me out of the way.
Updating our top story, security video at a daytime robbery at a Port Credit clothing and footwear store. The 4 thieves were done in 40 seconds. 2 hours later, a cell phone retailer in Square One was robbed. Police are looking into whether there's a connection.
I think the government wants to have a reputation of exercising fiscal restraint, and they want the public to see that. But I think they're not prepared to take the kinds of measures that are going to be necessary.
The federal Liberals announced a $6.2 billion housing plan in their fall economic statement today. It is the foundation of the government's fiscal blueprint that will carry it into the next election.
It's sitting at home serves nobody good, so I'm glad that there won't be a strike.
A tentative deal has been reached between the province and the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario. If ratified, the deal is expected to keep students in class at public elementary schools into 2026. Public high school teachers have entered into binding arbitration with the government.
Inflation in Canada slowed last month thanks to a drop in gasoline prices. Some economists say the data takes the pressure off the Bank of Canada to raise interest rates any further, though its job isn't done. BNN Bloomberg's Jacqueline Hansen has the details.
Inflation is decelerating. It is still above the Bank of Canada's 2% target, but it is moving in the right direction. Headline inflation slowed from 3.8% in September to 3.1%. The price of goods decelerated the most thanks to lower prices at the pump, though costs of services picked up, driven by travel tours, rent, and property taxes. Still, strip out the drop in gasoline prices, and core inflation, that is at 3.6%. That is the lowest it has been since November of 2021. Bank of Montreal's chief economist Doug Porter says the progress on getting inflation down suggests there is no need for further interest rate hikes. However, before the central bank considers cutting interest rates, he says prices for services will also need to moderate, and he suspects that could take another 6 months. Let's take a look at some of the closing market numbers for today. The Canadian dollar is trading higher to 73 cents US. West Texas Intermediate oil is a hair lower to a touch under $78 US a barrel. And Western Canadian Select gained about $1.50 to almost $54 US a barrel. As for stock markets, the TSX declined 136 points to end the day at 20,109.97. That is the latest in business. I'm Jacqueline Hansen of BNN Bloomberg.
Bad Boy's been given permission to begin liquidating its stores as it works to restructure its business. A judge ruled the furniture company can begin sales at its 12 locations for 30 days. After that period, some stores will close, consolidate, or remain open. The company's faced criticism after it announced it was trying to avoid bankruptcy, as some customers say they've lost hundreds or even thousands of dollars in deposits.
Nearly 30 million pounds of concrete and steel have been removed from Rogers Centre, where Phase 2 of renovations is now underway. This is time-lapse video of the demo on most of the stadium's lower bowl. The field and all of the seats on the 100 level have been torn out. Excavation work is also being done to create below-ground player facilities and premium clubs. The team says all the work will be done in time for the home opener on April 8th. The ballpark's upper bowl underwent significant changes last offseason.
Toronto Raptors are in Florida tonight playing the first of back-to-back road games.
His refreshments.
Yes. Here's Siakam, the 3-ball.
The Raps are coming off a win over Detroit on Sunday. Tonight they're in Orlando to take on the Magic, who are on a 3-game winning streak. It's Toronto's second game of the NBA's inaugural in-season tournament. They open with a loss to Boston on Friday. The Raptors play Indiana tomorrow night.
From the basketball court to the tennis court, and Canada will not repeat as Davis Cup champions.
And the way he started, the way he finishes with an ace, 18 aces.
Thornhill's Milos Raonic dominated the opening match of the quarterfinals today against Finland. The win gave number 1 ranked Canada an early lead, but the Finns responded, winning the second singles match and then the decisive doubles match. 14th ranked Finland now moves on to the semifinals for the first time ever.
Just ahead, it's out there floating above the Earth. A NASA toolkit accidentally lost while astronauts were out fixing the ISS. making for a fun new game of Spot the Bag down on Earth.
It's still up there and visible to anyone looking hard enough.
A NASA tool bag accidentally dropped during a spacewalk can be seen with a telescope or even a good pair of binoculars. It's been in orbit since floating away from the International Space Station on November 1st. The tool bag is small and moving really fast, but it's highly reflective and will resemble a glowing star moving slowly across the sky. The wayward item is traveling about 15 to 30 minutes ahead of the ISS and is expected to remain in orbit for several months. It will gradually descend until reaching Earth's atmosphere, where it will most likely disintegrate. Quite the story.
How about that? Seeing some wet roads this hour, so give us the sense of what's happening in the hours ahead rain-wise.
Yeah, and if you're looking up at the sky, you might not see a whole lot tonight. We've got a lot of cloud cover. We've got some fog now impacting the GTA also, so just be mindful of this if you do have to be out on the roads. And then we're not quite finished with the wet weather either. So here's one more look at the satellite and radar. There has been some clearing, but again, we're expecting another round of showers later this evening and into the overnight. One more look at the watches and warnings and special weather statements that remain in place, mainly for eastern Ontario now. Tomorrow at a glance, 7 degrees for the high. That's seasonally warm. 7-day forecast looks like this. Hopefully a little bit of sun over the next couple of days and into the weekend, but it's also going to be cool Saturday, Sunday. Nathan and Michelle.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. Be sure to join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zarada Allman with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a good night.